Welcome back, everybody. Going from zero to producer in 90 days with Ableton Live. I'm your instructor, Torbjorn. Big thanks to Ableton for extending their free trial of Ableton Live 10 Suite for 90 days. While we're all in isolation, I'm going to be bringing you the good knowledge so we can get those ideas from your head coming out of the speakers. And so today we're going to take all of the techniques that we've covered in the last couple videos. We're going to take all of those techniques and we're going to start from scratch and make a instrumental beat that someone can sing or rap over. This video today is going to cover all of the stuff that we're going to do in the session view of Ableton to get that going. Let's go ahead and have a quick review. So all of our past 8 lessons, we talked about editing, automation. We did a little stuff with the simpler instrument. We talked about drum rack, sounds and instruments, audio effects, MIDI effects. We got into a little bit of music theory, and then we also talked about song form. Lots of stuff that we covered in those last couple videos, and we're going to be using all of that stuff today. So before we get started, let's talk about a couple things. Foundation of the type of song that we're going to be making. The type of beat is intended to have a vocalist sing or rap on it. So minimalism is okay here. We're not going to record the actual vocals as a part of this project. We're just going to be making the beat. We kind of have to imagine that there's vocals there even though there aren't. And now when we're making this type of song and this type of beat, there's certain sounds that are a part of the genre. And so we're going to take a moment to build our palette before we get started with the actual beat making process as well. And the other thing to remember is that drums and tempo determine a lot of the energy and mood of the track. That sort of like trap, club, hip hop style usually is somewhere between 120 and 150 BPM. Today, we're probably going to choose somewhere around 140. So the first thing we got to do is we got to put our like palette together. I use the word palette because it's like what a painter puts their paint on. For us as musicians and producers, that just means that we're going to pick some sounds that go together. We're going to start with something that sort of feels like it all belongs in the same universe. So I made a list of sounds that you would typically hear in this type of beat. And I thought we could just quickly go through and find a couple of those sounds and put some stuff together before we start writing. So the first thing, of course, is that we want to put together some drums. So I'm going to grab a drum rack, drag that onto a MIDI track here, and I'm going to start going through our drum hits. We're in the drum category here on the browser. Up at the very top, we've got this arrow that opens up all our different type of drum hits. So let's start with a kick drum. Let's see if we can find something really like short and snappy and digital sounding is really common in these trap hip hop beats. I actually like that one. It's called 80s UK disco, but it's got that short, snappy feel. So let's stick with that one for now. I'm going to close the kick menu, go down here to snare. Kind of like that one. I think these snare, like 808 style snares, these are 2 really good options. I like this really short one. Let's grab this first one, and then we're going to grab the really short one as well. I do this with snares and hi-hats. A lot of times I'll grab 2 or 3 different samples. It's cool to have some different options. Sometimes layering sounds or sometimes switching between 2 different sounds can be a cool idea. All right, now same thing, looking for that really short, snappy hi-hat sound. That one actually sounds really good. Finding our kind of... finding our theme here with these like 808 style samples. So we've got 3 closed hi-hats, and let's see just if I can find like an open hi-hat, something that's a little bit longer of a sound. I like that one. Let's drag that open hi-hat. It's a little long. We don't need to get too fancy with customizing our samples here, but I just know real quick that I want this one to be shorter. Much better. All right, that's it. That's all we need for drums for now. Got our drums up here. That's all good. All right, the next thing that we need to do is we need like an 808 or some type of really low boomy bass sound. Also, sometimes in these things you hear this Reese bass. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Let's first go here through our samples, type bass. See if we can find anything that's got that big boomy sound. We can always pitch it down even if the note is too high. That's kind of something like that, but a little bit longer. I've got tons of samples on this, so there's lots of stuff to go through. Ooh, I kind of like that one, actually. I'm just going to grab this one for now, actually. It's okay that the pitch bends down on it. We can work with that. And next thing is this Reese bass. This is a really easy bass to make. Going to go grab an analog instrument, drag it here to a blank space. And all we're going to do is it's going to be both of these oscillators. You guys will remember from our synthesizer lesson that that's the part of the synthesizer that the sound actually comes from. And both of these are going to be the same thing. They're both going to be this saw wave, except all we're going to do is take this second one here, and we're going to grab this detune knob, and we're just going to pitch it up a little bit, like 0.10. And now it's got two notes playing at the same time, but one of them is detuned, so we're going to get this kind of like warbly sound when we play those notes together. Kind of interesting sounding. We can also grab our filter and we can get rid of some of those high frequencies. Don't necessarily need all of that high-pitched stuff. That's kind of cool. I like it a little bit more lo-fi like that. We can go here to our envelope, the amplitude. By default, it's got a little bit of a slope here, so we get that kind of plucky sound. I'm just going to grab the sustain control and drag it all the way up just so it's one long, loud note. I think I might actually drag our attack up a little bit just so it's a little softer, fades that note in a little bit. That's like a pretty basic version of that Reese bass. You might even go over here on our global section and grab this unison thing and detune it some more. And that'll just help that warbly sound. That's really the characteristic that makes a Reese bass what it is. We can maybe even drag that frequency down a little more. And then this glide thing is really cool. Glide is just going to take your sound, your note, and if you are playing one note and then add a second note on top of it, instead of like stopping the first note and starting the second note, it will pitch up or pitch down over time into the note. What we do need to do here is go to our voices and make this a mono instrument, meaning that it only plays one note at a time. So I'll drag this glide up to about 70%. I'm going to play one note and play a second note, and you'll hear that it glides that note up into it. Pretty simple sound to make, all considering. There's lots of different versions of this Reese bass thing that we can make, but for now, I think that that's okay. I'm just going to label these things as we're going. All right, now let's check the next thing on the list. Next thing we're going to need is some keys, maybe some synth pads. I'm going to hold off on the keys for now because I'm not quite sure. We might add that layer later, but we definitely need a synth pad. So going back here to our handy-dandy sounds category, we're going to open up our pads, start somewhere in the middle, and we're just going to listen to these until we find something that's like kind of soft, kind of ethereal, kind of floaty and dark sounding. Yeah, let's go with that. That one kind of stuck out to me. So we'll just click and drag that into a blank space. We can rename this pad. So that's cool for harmony. We're going to make some chords with that sound in a little bit. And now we're going to need some lead sounds. So I'm thinking plucky sounds, something with an arpeggiator effect on it. So let's go back here. Guitar and plucked category. I like to try to start from a different part of the preset thing every time so we're not just listening to the same sounds. So we'll start from the bottom and move our way up. I like this one that it's really, really short because we're going to have a lot of these notes with an arpeggiator effect. That one might be cool. Strat 3, muted guitar. We'll grab that one for now. We can use some audio effects here in a minute to finesse this sound and make it a little bit more interesting. But that's a good starting point. We got to pluck, effects, risers, transition effects, atmospheric sounds. I think I might add those things after we get some more musical elements. Those are things that are just kind of extra noises and like swooshy sounds and things that add some kind of like emotion to the track. Reverse crash cymbals and things like that. We're going to start this in session view. Press the tab key. For this video today, I know a lot of people only use the arrangement view. If you start with a different input, you may end with a different output. And so it can be always cool to try something different. With session view, all of your clips show up in this grid format. And so it can make it really easy to just kind of like compartmentalize and understand all of the different pieces that are in your song. We've got these 2 extra audio tracks here. I'm just going to delete them. I wrote down here at the bottom of my notes that we're going to be working with 140 BPM and D minor. The 2 things that we can make a decision about early on that will make the process go a lot faster is deciding what our song form is going to be in advance and deciding that we're going to be writing this song with the reductive arrangement technique. So what that means is in terms of song form, we're predetermining that it's going to be like an intro, verse, chorus, outro. Over here on our master track, these are the things that are called scenes. This is what we're going to be pressing play on. So we can actually just go through here and name all of those things. Intro, verse, chorus, outro. And now we've got some like nice and easy places where we can just keep track of what's what. The second thing that I said, which is the reductive arranging, it basically just means we're going to start by writing like the loudest and most energetic part of the song. All of the sounds are going to be playing. It's going to be the max dynamic level, and then we're going to work backwards from there. I've got my checklist up here, all of the instruments that we're going to be messing with, and I'm just going to go ahead and start writing some stuff. Starting with the drums, so I'll double click and put a clip there. We'll just start with 1 bar. I'm going to press this MIDI editor preview button here. Your little headphone icon will turn blue, and that means that when you add a note or press the piano roll key, it'll play that sample for you, so it just reminds you of which sample is which. So you'll probably remember from our drum composition video that like on a very basic level, most drum beats in most dance and pop music are just a kick and a snare going back and forth. So we can start there. Let's get a little metronome going and let's just listen and get a feel for that pulse at that tempo. Nice and easy, kick and snare back and forth, tells us when to nod our head, when to move our feet on the dance floor. Now we need to start filling some spaces in between. I think the most logical thing to do is to add some hi-hats. And now it's going to sound like this. Can turn our click track off. We want that to play over and over and over, but we don't want it to just be the same thing every time. We want to add some variation as we go. So I'm going to hit this duplicate loop button, and now magically our 1 bar loop becomes 2 identical bars playing back to back, and now we can start doing some things in between the hi-hat spaces that will be different on bar 1 than it will be on bar 2. So the first thing I'm going to do, equal space between that hi-hat, is I'm going to add another hi-hat. Maybe I'll move a few things around. I'm just going to try a couple things and listen back to it and just see if I like it. And if I like it, I'll keep it. And if not, I'll move it somewhere else. That's pretty cool. I think this should actually be the open hi-hat sound here. And then here, I'm going to switch to a triplet grid. And I'm going to do some stutter hi-hats. Command D to duplicate. And then let's take a listen to that. A few more notes in between there. Sounding pretty good. We've got 2 bars. 2 bars repeating over and over, and though will get a little bit monotonous. So we're going to do this duplicate loop one more time, and we're going to switch a few things. This second hi-hat stutter, I might even go to 30 seconds and do a couple things like that. Leave a little gap so we get kind of like a double stutter sound. I think the kick and snare, now we can expand on that, add a couple kicks. We've got this shorter second snare drum, so we can put a few of those in there. Let's take a listen to that. Now that's starting to sound like some trap hip-hop drums. Really easy with the duplicate loop and just like changing a few notes as you are like adding those extra bars. All right, now let's add that 808 bass. So we're going to add a new clip. By default, it's going to be 1 bar long. We want it to be 4 bars long, so it's the same length as our drum loop. So even though there's no notes in here, it's all good. We're just going to hit duplicate loop twice. The trick with 808s is we want to line up all of our bass notes to be playing on the same notes as the kick. So we're going to do kind of like a little bit of a cheater move here. We're going to go back to our drum clip. We're going to click on the piano roll note, and it's going to select all of our kick drums in the row. Command C to copy or Control C to copy. Let's go back over to our bass. I'm going to select bar 1. Click here with the mouse, press Command V or Control V. And now all our notes that we had on our kick drums are being played by the bass as well. We're making this song in D minor, so we're going to want to use our arrow keys to shift that up so that we're playing that D note. Shift tab over to our device view. Because this is a bass instrument, we want to just trigger the note once and have the whole note play all the way through. So we're going to put this in one-shot mode. If we press play on this scene, we should get a little context of drums and bass playing together. Nice. Starting to get a little bit more of that like hip-hop trappy vibe. I'm going to go straight over here to the pads, and let's start making some chords. So before we start adding notes, I want to just make sure that whatever we're doing is going to be in key. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to grab this C minor. We want to be in D minor, but it's forcing everything to be in C minor. Rather than messing with all of the notes on this grid, we can just force everything to be in C minor, and we can grab a pitch MIDI effect and go up 2 semitones. So it'll go from C to C sharp to D. Now everything that we play is going to be in the key of D minor, and we could literally just start adding some random notes. We're going to go to our length, and let's make this 4 bars long. So we'll just do like some really, really long notes here. And then Command D. Actually, let's make it 8 bars long. Why not? Do a really long chord progression. D. Just moving a couple things around. There's a C. How to make chords is that we had to skip a note in the scale. So I'm going to hold my Alt key and click and drag this to drag a duplicate. Or if you're on PC, you're going to want to click and hold your Control key and start dragging that note. So I'm just going to listen for if it goes up 1 note in the scale, and then I'm going to listen for when it goes up a 2nd note in the scale. And that's how I'll know that we've got the first note in our triad. So there's our 2nd note up. There's our 3rd. And then we're going to grab a duplicate of that middle note and do the same thing. Listen for when the note changes. So there's 1 chord. That's cool. We're just going to try a couple things, and if we don't like it, we'll change it. This pad, these chords, especially in this type of hip hop trap beat, it's very much like a background texture. So we can like safely turn that way down because we don't need it to be very loud. And now it's time to work on our lead. Sounds kind of like that. We might need to lean on some audio effects to make that a little bit more interesting. But we basically are going to use these same notes that we used in our chord, and we're going to make an arpeggiated thing out of that. So we're just going to copy this clip, and we're going to paste it over here, and we can make it yellow so that everything's color-coded and nice. Holding the Alt button and just clicking and dragging them over, and now we get duplicates of those on our pluck clip, just so that we know that we're forcing everything into that C minor scale and then pitching it up to a D so that it's actually D minor. Not particularly exciting. Pretty short and boring. I'm going to grab this arpeggiator effect. Let's just start with that and see how that sounds. We can turn this steps knob up to 1, and it'll add 1 octave that it arpeggiates up on top of itself. Solo our drums and listen to those things together. I think it's cool if we treat it a little more as a background textural thing. So let's try a 3/4 polyrhythm. Or we could go the other way and we could fit 12 notes in that space instead. I like that 1/12 polyrhythm. It's a little bit dry sounding, so I think I'm going to go in here and grab a delay, set it to a really short amount of time. Let's see if that spices anything up. That's kind of cool. It gives it some a sense of space. We can go down here and just add a reverb as well. That's probably cool for now. Let's take a listen to all of these elements together. Excellent. Let's go back to this respace. I'm going to do another kind of cheater move here. I'm going to copy the chords over from our pad onto the respace. So now this is the same clip. And I'm just going to get rid of all of the top notes of the chord. So we're just going to keep the root from each one. Select these, delete them. Select those, delete them. Select those, delete them. Select those, delete them. And you'll see here that we're in the 3rd octave range, which is just like way too high for a bass. So we can just grab this pitch thing. We can grab a -12. Still a little bit high. I'll grab that pitch, hold shift and press down. That'll shift it down 1 more octave. So we're now at -2 octaves. Sounds a little better. I like the first 2 notes, but as we get down here, those notes just it gets to be too low for the speaker to recreate. So what we can do is we can actually take these last 2 notes, hold shift, and shift those up an octave. So that way we can keep the whole thing in that lower register, except for those last 2 notes. We don't want those to go too low. We've got the 808, which is definitely the higher energy part, and then we've got this respace thing, which is definitely the chiller part. So I'm thinking that those 2 things being different dynamic levels, we can use those to our advantage. Grab that respace clip. That's only going to happen on the verses. I'm going to copy and paste that to both of those verses. All these clips here on the chorus. I'm going to copy and paste here over to our other chorus. And now it's time to reduce the arrangement here on our drums. Grab our drum clip, hold Alt, drag it onto the verse, and now we need to go in here. This is now its own separate clip. So we can name this one chorus, chorus. We'll name this one verse. And I think what needs to happen here is we need to get rid of some of these extra kick drums, and we need to get rid of some of these extra hi-hat embellishments so that we're just taking the same vibe, but that the energy is going down a little bit. All of these offbeat hi-hats can go. We can get rid of all of the offbeat snare drums, and then in the verse, this louder, more aggressive snare drum, we'll just move those notes up to be the softer snare drum. Get rid of this offbeat hi-hat, get rid of this hi-hat trill and just replace it with one note. Maybe this stutter doesn't get the double hit, it just gets the one. All right, and now let's listen to our verse section. And now imagine we're going into Here Comes the Chorus. So we're able to easily change the energy level up that way. So now we've got our verse drums. We can copy those over. These bass things, I think we're only going to have in the verses and the chorus. I think this pluck thing can be in the chorus only. And let's just grab our pad, copy that over. And I think it might be cool to just pitch it down an octave. So I'll go in here. We've got our chorus pad and our verse pad. And all I'm going to do is click Command A or Control A, hold Shift, press the down arrow. And now on our verse, our pads are just a little bit more low pitch. Maybe we'll go in here to our audio effects and go to multi-band dynamics and just grab this OTT effect. We'll put it on our pads just to make sure that we're not losing those low notes. Awesome. We can copy our verse over here to that section. Maybe that verse also is the low chord in the intro. We'll copy our verse drums up to the intro. We'll call that intro. And I think the thing that we just got to do here is just get rid of all the kicks in the intro and get rid of any extra hi-hats. And now here comes the verse. And then here comes the chorus. Etc., etc. We can do the same thing for the outro that we did for the intro. We need to do something that switches up our second verse so that it's not the same as the first verse. And what I like to do sometimes to switch up that second verse is just make a new MIDI track, go back to our sounds. We're just going to move this clip over here that's playing our verse 2 chords, and we're just going to grab a different pad sound. Let's try that one. Meta Fatness. So now we've basically made all of the sections. All we got to do is record to arrange. So I'm going to go ahead and stop all my clips, and I'm going to press the record to arrange button, and I'm going to cycle through by pressing the play button on all of these different scenes, and then that's how we're going to record it to our arrange screen. If you take a look down here, you'll see we get these little loop wheels letting us know how long each section is playing for. So that was 4 bars. I'll let it loop through this thing twice. And then now, right before it goes to the next loop, I'm gonna press verse. Here's the verse. You can imagine someone singing or rapping over this section. All the while, our clips are being recorded to the arrange screen. So there's one loop through our verse. We're gonna let this one play one more time before we move on to the chorus. Getting ready to press play on the chorus. Here we go. All right, let's get ready to press play on verse 2. Here comes our second chorus. And here comes the outro. Now, a little bonus trick here. I'm going to press one of these stop buttons below the drums and just let this pad play by itself one time at the very, very end. Press the stop button there. And there we go. Press space bar or press the stop button on the arrangement here. And now if we press our tab key and zoom all the way out, there is our beat. It's got all our stuff up here. It's got our drum rack stuff. It's got our 808s. It's got our Reese bass. We can go up here and press this orange button, which is the back to arrangement button, and you'll see all this stuff lights up to let us know that now this is where the sound is playing from. We're working on the arrange screen now, no longer on the session view. This is kind of like what I would consider a sketch. It's a solid idea. It's got some chords. It's got some drum beats. It's got a lot of elements, and it's got a song form that we've started to put together here. It's not necessarily a complete idea. There's definitely still some stuff that we need to add to this. We're going to layer some sounds. We're going to mess around with some audio effects, but this is like a great starting point here. I'm going to go ahead and file save live set as. I'll just drop this on my desktop for now, and we'll call this our Trap Beat Project 1. And for good measure, you can always go down and press collect all and save in case you were using any loops or any samples that don't come with Ableton and you wanted to back up this project or have this project get brought to like another person's computer for a collaboration. Always want to make sure that we collect all and save so that all of those samples get added to our project folder. That's it for this first lesson. Definitely a lot of stuff to cover. 9 videos worth of material all rolled up into one process so that we could make this sketch step 1 for our beat. The next video, we're going to take this same arrangement and we're going to dive into the edits and all the bells and whistles, like I said. So make sure you save this and we'll go through that next process. Thanks again to Ableton for 90 days of free Ableton Live 10 Suite, extending that trial. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.